In the vast wilderness of the mountains, where predators rule and survival is a constant battle, a shocking event unfolded. A devastating car crash left a family stranded on a treacherous mountain road. The parents, gravely injured, lay unconscious in the wreckage, while their 2-year-old baby cried out into the dark, unforgiving forest. With no immediate help in sight, hope seemed lost. But then something extraordinary happened. A massive grizzly bear, one of nature's most feared predators, emerged from the shadows. Drawn by the baby's cries and the scent of blood, it approached the scene. Most would expect a tragedy, an ending too grim to imagine. Instead, what unfolded left everyone stunned. The bear didn't harm the child. It became the baby's guardian. With remarkable gentleness, it carried the child to a secluded cave, shielded him from the cold, kept him warm, and even fed him. This was not mere survival. It was an act of care that defied everything we thought we knew about wild animals. How could a predator resist its instincts? What bond could form between a helpless child and a beast of the wilderness? This is a story of trust, connection, and a miracle that transcends species. Stay with us as we uncover the incredible journey of a bear and a baby, a tale that will forever change how you see the natural world. The mountains of Wyoming are as beautiful as they are unforgiving. On that fateful night, storm clouds rolled in, transforming the rugged landscape into a treacherous maze. Rain poured down in torrents, reducing visibility to nearly nothing. The Collins family, Michael, Sarah, and their 2-year-old son Noah, were making their way home, their SUV cautiously navigating the winding mountain road. Inside the vehicle, tension filled the air. Michael's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white as he struggled to keep the car steady on the slick asphalt. Beside him, Sarah's anxious gaze darted between her husband and the storm ahead. In the back seat, little Noah was fast asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling with each peaceful breath. Oblivious to the chaos outside, he clutched a small stuffed toy in his hand. "We should pull over," Sarah said, her voice barely audible over the pounding rain. "We're almost there," Michael replied, though his own voice betrayed unease. "Just a few more miles." But nature had other plans. As they approached a sharp curve, the car's tires lost traction on the rain-slicked road. The SUV skidded, veering uncontrollably toward the edge of the mountain. Michael's attempts to steer failed, and within seconds the car broke through the flimsy guardrail and tumbled down the steep embankment. The crash was violent. The SUV flipped multiple times, its metal frame groaning under the force of the impact. Shattered glass and twisted debris scattered across the rocky slope until the vehicle finally came to rest against the trunk of a massive pine tree. For a moment, the only sound was the relentless rain pelting the wreckage. Inside, Michael and Sarah were unconscious, their bodies slumped awkwardly in their seats. Blood trickled from a cut on Michael's forehead, while Sarah's arm was bent at an unnatural angle. In the back, Noah's cries broke the eerie silence. Though still strapped securely in his car seat, he was frightened and confused. His soft sobs echoed into the forest, carrying further with each passing second. The storm continued to rage, masking the sound of the wreckage and the cries of the helpless child. With no other vehicles on the road and the thick forest surrounding them, rescue seemed a distant hope. But the wilderness is never truly silent, and Noah's cries reached ears no one could have expected. Somewhere in the shadows, a massive figure stirred. A grizzly bear, drawn by the sounds of distress and the scent of blood, began making its way toward the wreckage. The grizzly bear emerged from the dense forest, its hulking form barely visible in the pouring rain. Each step it took was deliberate, its powerful paws pressing into the muddy ground. Its sharp nose twitched as it picked up the scent of blood and gasoline, a mixture foreign yet intriguing in its natural world. Noah's cries grew louder as the bear approached the wreckage. Most animals would flee from the unfamiliar smell of fuel and the sharp sounds of broken metal. But this bear moved closer, driven by something beyond instinct. Its massive head lowered as it sniffed the crushed car, cautiously circling the wreckage. Through the shattered window, the bear spotted Noah. The toddler's tear-streaked face and soft whimpers caught its attention. For a moment, the bear paused, its dark, intelligent eyes studying the scene before it. The bear leaned closer, its breath fogging the glass. It let out a low, rumbling grunt, Not of aggression, but something almost soothing. Noah's cries subsided, replaced by wide-eyed curiosity. Despite the situation, the child didn't scream or recoil. Instead, he reached out with his tiny hand, as if sensing the bear's protective presence. Then, in an act that defied all natural instincts, the bear began to act. With incredible gentleness, it used one of its massive paws to nudge the crumpled door. The metal groaned in protest, but the bear persisted, carefully prying the door open, just enough to access the car seat. The bear sniffed at the car seat, its sharp claws delicately touching the edges. Noah sat still, his small fingers clutching the straps. Then, with precision that seemed almost unnatural, the bear grabbed the handle of the car seat in its powerful jaws. It lifted the seat, securing the child within, and turned toward the forest. The rain poured harder as the bear lumbered into the wilderness, cradling the car seat as if it held its own cub. Each step was careful, avoiding the slick rocks and uneven ground. The forest, dark and silent apart from the storm, seemed to envelop them in its mysterious embrace. After what felt like hours, the bear arrived at a hidden cave deep within the woods. The entrance was partially obscured by moss and overhanging branches, providing shelter from the relentless storm. The bear gently set the car seat down on a bed of soft moss and leaves, ensuring the child was stable. Noah, still calm, gazed at the bear with an expression of awe. His fear had vanished, replaced by a strange sense of trust. The bear left the cave briefly, its silhouette disappearing into the rain-soaked forest. When it returned, it carried a mouthful of berries and roots. Dropping the food near Noah, the bear chewed some of the softer roots and offered them to the child. Noah reached out instinctively, accepting the strange meal. The night stretched on, the storm outside continuing to rage. The bear positioned itself near the cave's entrance, its massive body blocking the cold wind from reaching Noah. Occasionally, it turned to check on the child, its dark eyes gleaming in the dim light. Noah, wrapped in warmth and the bear's protective presence, began to drift into a peaceful sleep. His small hand reached out, touching the bear's coarse fur one last time before his eyes closed. For the grizzly, this was no ordinary act. It had become a guardian, defying everything humans believed about predators. The wilderness, often seen as harsh and unforgiving, had provided an unlikely protector. But as the bear and child rested in the quiet of the cave, the outside world was just beginning to realize the gravity of the situation. Back at the crash site, rescue workers were about to uncover a mystery that would leave them stunned. Hours after the crash, the storm began to ease, and rescue teams arrived at the crash site. The scene was grim. The mangled SUV lay at the bottom of the embankment, its twisted metal frame wedged against a massive tree. Rain-soaked rescuers worked quickly to assess the situation. Michael and Sarah Collins were found unconscious but alive. Paramedics stabilized them, carefully removing them from the wreckage and rushing them to safety. But when one rescuer checked the back seat, they froze. "Noah's missing!" the man shouted, his voice cutting through the chaotic scene. "The car seat, it's gone!" A wave of panic rippled through the rescue team. How could a 2-year-old survive outside the vehicle in such harsh conditions? Worse, what could have taken him? It didn't take long for the sheriff to spot a chilling clue. Large paw prints pressed deep into the muddy ground, led away from the wreckage. His face grew pale. "Bear tracks," he muttered. "A grizzly must have taken the boy." The possibility sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. The idea of a wild predator taking a helpless child was almost too horrific to contemplate. As word spread, the small town of Jackson rallied to organize search parties. Volunteers armed with flashlights and warm clothing combed through the dense forest. Helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights slicing through the darkness. The search for Noah Collins became a race against time. Among the volunteers was Jack Dawson, a seasoned hunter and tracker known for his deep knowledge of the Wyoming wilderness. Jack was no stranger to the dangers of the mountains, having spent decades navigating its treacherous terrain. When he examined the bear tracks near the crash site, he furrowed his brow. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered to himself, tracing the path with his eyes. "A grizzly wouldn't carry a child like this. Not unless—" Jack's voice trailed off. His instincts told him this wasn't an ordinary situation. Determined to uncover the truth, He volunteered to track the bear's movements. As Jack ventured deeper into the forest, he noticed subtle signs. A broken twig here, disturbed earth there. Each clue guided him further from the crashed site, away from the well-worn trails. The rain had softened the ground, making the bear's massive paw prints easier to follow. Hours passed, and Jack found himself in a part of the wilderness few dared to enter. The air was thick with the scent of pine, and the canopy above blocked most of the light, leaving the forest in perpetual shadow. But Jack pressed on, driven by the faint hope that Noah might still be alive. Along the way, Jack stumbled upon something extraordinary. Carved into the weathered surface of a massive boulder were ancient petroglyphs. The primitive drawings depicted bears standing alongside human figures, as though protecting them. Jack stared at the symbols, his heart racing. Could there be truth to the old legends he'd heard as a child? Stories of spirit bears, guardians of the lost? Shaking his head, he refocused on the trail. Finally, just as the first light of dawn began to break, Jack heard a sound that made him freeze in his tracks, a faint, high-pitched cooing. His heart pounded as he followed the noise, carefully stepping over roots and rocks until he reached the entrance of a hidden cave. Peering inside, Jack's breath caught in his throat. There, nestled on a bed of moss, was Noah. The toddler looked unharmed, his face illuminated by the soft light filtering into the cave. But what truly stunned Jack was the figure lying beside the boy. A massive grizzly bear was curled protectively around Noah, its massive body shielding the child from the cold. The sight was surreal. Man and beast, predator and prey, coexisting in a way Jack had never imagined. Jack's instincts screamed at him to proceed with caution. He reached for his radio, whispering, "Base camp, I found the boy. He's alive. But you're not going to believe this. He's with a bear." The response crackled through the radio. "Did you say a bear?" "Yes," Jack replied, his eyes fixed on the unbelievable scene. "And it's protecting him." The wilderness had offered its own miracle, but now came the delicate task of retrieving the child without disrupting the fragile balance that had formed between the boy and the bear. Jack crouched at the entrance of the cave, his heart pounding as he stared at the unbelievable scene before him. Noah sat on the mossy floor, looking completely unharmed, while the massive grizzly bear lay beside him, its dark eyes fixed on Jack. The air was thick with tension. One wrong move could shatter this fragile moment of coexistence. Jack's voice was low and calm as he spoke into the radio. "Base camp, I need backup. I've located the boy, but he's with a grizzly bear. Approach carefully and don't spook the animal." Static crackled, followed by an incredulous response. "Did you say a grizzly? And the boy's alive?" "Yes," Jack replied, still staring into the bear's unwavering gaze. "And it's guarding him." The bear shifted slightly, letting out a low rumble. Not a growl of aggression, but something softer. Jack took a slow, deliberate step forward, lowering himself to appear less threatening. "Easy now," he murmured, his voice soothing. Noah noticed Jack for the first time and let out a delighted squeal. He waved his tiny hand as if inviting Jack closer. The bear didn't react aggressively. Instead, it glanced at the boy, almost as if checking his reaction before returning its attention to Jack. Jack felt a surge of hope. The bear wasn't behaving like a predator. It was acting like a protector, but he knew he had to be careful. Moving inch by inch, Jack approached the boy. Noah reached out toward him, his small fingers clutching at the air. Jack crouched beside the child, his movements slow and deliberate. The bear's eyes followed every motion, but it remained still. "Hey there, buddy," Jack whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of relief and awe. "I've got you now." He carefully unstrapped Noah from the car seat and lifted him into his arms. The boy giggled and clung to Jack's jacket, seemingly unbothered by the entire ordeal. As Jack began to back away, the bear let out another soft rumble. It rose to its full height, towering over Jack and Noah, its massive frame blocking the cave entrance. For a moment, Jack froze, unsure of what the bear would do next. To his astonishment, the bear stepped aside, creating a narrow path for them to leave. It watched silently as Jack carried Noah toward the forest edge. Outside, the rescue team was waiting anxiously. When Jack emerged from the trees with Noah in his arms, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The toddler was alive, smiling, and completely unharmed. But Jack's story left everyone stunned. "A bear protected him?" one rescuer asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "Yes," Jack replied firmly. "It didn't just protect him, it cared for him. That bear wasn't acting on instinct. It knew what it was doing." As paramedics checked Noah and prepared to reunite him with his parents, Jack couldn't shake the image of the bear from his mind. Its behavior was unlike anything he'd ever seen in decades of tracking wildlife. Back at the hospital, Michael and Sarah Collins wept with joy as they held their son. But the questions quickly began. How had Noah survived alone in the wilderness? What compelled the bear to protect him instead of attacking? The story spread rapidly, capturing the attention of scientists, wildlife experts, and media outlets. Some dismissed it as a fluke, an unusual but explainable event. But others, like Jack, believed there was something deeper, a connection between the boy and the bear that went beyond mere chance. As Jack sat by the fire that night, his thoughts returned to the ancient petroglyphs he had seen in the forest. The images of bears standing protectively beside humans seemed more significant now. Could those old legends hold a kernel of truth? The discovery of Noah and the bear's incredible bond was only the beginning. What would follow would challenge everything people thought they knew about the wild. The incredible story of Noah and the grizzly bear spread like wildfire, turning the small town of Jackson into the epicenter of global fascination. News crews descended upon the area, eager to capture the miraculous tale. But as the awe and celebration subsided, a new question emerged. What should be done about the bear? At a heated town hall meeting, emotions ran high. The room was packed with townspeople, reporters, and experts, all offering conflicting opinions. "We can't ignore the fact that this is a grizzly bear," Sheriff Tom Hawkins said, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs. "It may have spared the boy this time, but it's still a predator. If it feels comfortable around humans, that's a recipe for disaster." A few in the crowd nodded in agreement, fear evident on their faces. But Jack Dawson stood up, his rugged face calm yet determined. "I've tracked wildlife my entire life," he began, his voice steady. "And I've never seen anything like this. That bear didn't act out of hunger or aggression. It protected Noah. We need to understand why before making rash decisions." Linda Reeves, a passionate conservationist and local wildlife advocate, joined Jack. "This isn't just about one bear," she argued. "This is a chance to learn something profound about the natural world. We owe it to ourselves and to this animal to protect it, not punish it for defying our expectations." The room buzzed with debate. Some feared the bear, calling for its relocation to a distant wilderness or even euthanasia to prevent future risks. Others, inspired by the extraordinary bond it had formed with Noah, pushed for its protection. Meanwhile, Noah's behavior added a new layer to the discussion. Back home, the toddler mimicked the bear's grunts and gestures, a habit that baffled his parents. He often rejected regular food, reaching for berries and other foraged items instead. "It's like he's imprinted on the bear," Sarah told a reporter during an interview. "He calls out for it in his sleep, almost like they've built their own language." This deep connection became the cornerstone of the argument to protect the bear. Linda and Jack proposed a bold idea, the creation of a sanctuary where the bear could live safely while researchers studied its behavior. "It's not just about protecting the bear," Linda said during a press conference. "It's about understanding what happened here. This is an opportunity to bridge the gap between humans and the wild." Despite pushback from skeptics, the idea gained traction. Donations poured in from around the country, and the town council eventually approved the project. They named the sanctuary Noah's Haven, honoring the bond that had sparked its creation. The sanctuary was designed to mirror the bear's natural habitat, with vast expanses of forest and minimal human interference. Advanced research facilities were built nearby to allow scientists to observe the bear without disrupting its routine. The day the bear was relocated to the sanctuary was both tense and emotional. Noah and his parents were present, standing at a safe distance. As the bear stepped into its new home, it paused and turned toward Noah. The toddler let out a series of soft grunts, imitating the bear's sounds. To everyone's astonishment, the bear responded with a low rumble, as if acknowledging the boy one last time before lumbering off into the forest. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she held Noah close. "I think it understands," she whispered. From that moment on, Noah's Haven became a beacon of hope and curiosity. Researchers flocked to the sanctuary, eager to study the bear, which they affectionately named Guardian. Its behavior continued to challenge assumptions about animal instincts and intelligence. Jack often visited the sanctuary, reflecting on how a single act of care from a wild animal had transformed an entire community. "This bear changed everything," he said during an interview. "It reminded us that there's more to nature than survival. There's connection, trust, and maybe even compassion." But the sanctuary's creation wasn't just about the bear. It became a symbol of coexistence, proving that even in the harshest of environments, humanity and wildlife could find common ground. Years after the miraculous encounter between Noah and the grizzly bear, the story of their bond had grown into a legend, inspiring people far beyond the small town of Jackson. What began as a desperate rescue in the wilderness transformed into a groundbreaking movement in wildlife conservation, with Noah's Haven at its heart. The sanctuary became a global symbol of coexistence between humans and nature. Guardian, as the bear was affectionately named, thrived in her protected habitat, even giving birth to cubs. Her maternal instincts, first displayed in her care for Noah, extended to her offspring, further cementing her place as an extraordinary creature in the eyes of researchers and visitors alike. Noah, now a teenager, spent much of his time at the sanctuary. He had grown into a curious, compassionate young man, deeply connected to the natural world. Researchers often marveled at his intuitive ability to communicate with Guardian and her cubs. Through gestures, sounds, and a sense of calm that seemed to resonate with the animals, Noah became an essential part of the sanctuary's studies. "Guardian trusts him," Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a renowned wildlife behaviorist, once said during a press conference. "That trust has allowed us to study her behavior in ways we never thought possible." Noah is living proof that the connection between humans and animals can go far beyond what science has understood. Noah's bond with Guardian also inspired educational programs at the sanctuary. Children and families from all over the world visited Noah's Haven to learn about wildlife conservation and the importance of respecting nature. Guided tours often ended with Noah sharing his story, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had experienced a miracle firsthand. "People see animals as something separate from us," Noah told one group of visitors. "But Guardian showed me that we're not so different. She taught me that compassion exists in the wild, even when survival seems like the only rule." The impact of Noah's Haven extended far beyond its borders. Guardian's story sparked global conservation initiatives, inspiring sanctuaries in other parts of the world to protect species once seen only as predators. Noah's name became synonymous with wildlife advocacy, and by his early 20s, he was traveling internationally, speaking at conferences and working with organizations to bridge the gap between humans and animals. Despite his growing fame, Noah always returned to the sanctuary. On quiet evenings, he would sit at the edge of Guardian's habitat, watching her roam with her cubs. It was a reminder of where his journey began and the profound bond that had shaped his life. Jack Dawson, now retired but still a frequent visitor, often joined Noah during these moments of reflection. "You know," Jack once said, his voice thick with emotion, "we set out to save a boy that night. But it turns out that bear saved all of us, our understanding, our priorities, and maybe even our hearts." As the years passed, the sanctuary continued to grow, both as a research hub and a place of inspiration. Noah's Haven became more than a home for Guardian. It became a testament to the power of trust and the possibilities of coexistence. And as Noah stood on the sanctuary's observation deck, watching the sun set over the forest, he smiled. Guardian and her cubs disappeared into the trees, their silhouettes fading into the golden light. "This," he thought, "is the legacy she gave us. A reminder that even in the wildest of places, there's room for connection."